Oh, it's because in OBS I have it set to the there's like what's it called, placeholder page. Yeah, sure.
All right, it's 9:10, so we're going to start now. Good morning, everyone. My name's Kush, and welcome to Code for Corona 2020. So, before we really get into this opening ceremony, I'd like to introduce you to the team behind Code for Corona. So, starting at the top left, we have myself, and then we have Arya, Aryaman, Dhruv, and then now we're at the bottom left, then we have Aryan, Tai Chi, and then Sam and Sach. Those are not the same photo, they're just twins. Though we could understand why you might be confused. So the eight of us will be online on Slack to be and contactable throughout the hackathon. So please just reach out, message us if you have any questions. So what are we all here to do this weekend? Well, we want to creatively explore some of the second order issues or the societal challenges caused by COVID-19. But specifically, we want to explore how technology might be able to build solutions to some of those problems. You're not trying to cure COVID, okay, using an iOS app. What you're trying to do is see how you can use your skills as a programmer and developer to help society in this time of need. We welcome people of all skill levels who want to just learn to build things in a safe environment and have fun. So hackathons are really fun, but I think the hardest part is starting with a blank slate. An idea can make or break your chances of winning. But how do you actually come up with an idea? Well, tune into our ideation workshop later to get more to learn more a little bit about that. But there also and also check out the inspiration briefs. What I'd like to do now though is take a look at some potential problem areas you might want to focus on over the weekend. So I think the problems can be grouped into these five general categories, although of course they are interrelated. The first has to do with physical isolation. Like logistically, how does life go on, right? How do you facilitate delivery, transport? When is delivery and transport even like acceptable, right? And with respect to availability, how can we ensure that merchants and others and services can continue to serve their customers even when face-to-face contact might not be possible, right? What matters, right? There was this controversy with how mental health professionals were not considered essential services and so were forced to close. Right? Was that the right decision? Well, we'll leave that up to you. The next category would be social well-being. So everybody's stuck at home all day. There's only so much Netflix and CS:GO you can play, right? How do you keep people entertained? I mean, for that matter, how do you help people stay connected with their friends? Right? It isn't easy not being able to see your friends for a month, 2 months, especially when you're used to living in a small city like Singapore. Right? How can you help stave off that sort of loneliness and perhaps sadness that might come for people who don't live with their family or who live alone? Closely related, then you have the economic problem of unemployment. Right? Certain jobs, such as software engineering, work really well remotely. So there's no problem for that. If anything, their productivity probably goes up because they're not being distracted by an office environment. But equally, you have certain jobs which just cannot take place face to face, right? Like, I mean, could a chef do remote work? Or not at all. And even if you look at restaurants who are still open for takeout, there's less necessity for to have staff to wait on people, right? And all those things have a knock-on effect on the economy. Then you have the day to day. Now, this is related to the isolation thing. Right? How do you safely procure supplies? Like their family trips to Fair Price are over and will be over for the foreseeable future. Right. So how do you deal with that? Do services like Redmark work? How do you deal with being stuck at home with your family all day? And then the final category would be productivity. Now, this one's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, those who can work remotely are often much more productive because they don't have to be distracted by I guess the water cooler chatter. But there's another, like, the axe cuts both ways. A famous Silicon Valley venture capitalist wrote about how although he was getting much more done in a day, he felt a lot more stressed and worn out because there was just no respite. You can be 5 minutes late to a meeting in real life, but if you're 5 minutes late to a Zoom call, everyone thinks you're not very nice. What are you doing? You're just staying at home. So that's just another area to consider. Now, you might want to think about certain technologies you could apply to these problems. So you could try experimenting with chatbots to, for example, stay substitute for certain social interaction, right? Or to, I don't know, even like a chatbot for an FAQ about the COVID, like where do you go for testing, what services what shops are you allowed to go for? Decentralized and private systems, like the primary use, I think, would be privacy conscious contact tracing. But then you have data visualization, and this is really to just help inform authorities as they try to combat the coronavirus. But then equally, you could also use data visualization to inform people about congestion in certain areas, right? Like for example, a certain fair price might have a lot of people, and so you shouldn't go now, or you should go later, or you should go to a different one, something like that. And temperature scanning, well, okay, temperature scanning is more of a hardware solution, but it is still technology and fairly critical, especially as we want to take those sort of precautionary measures and ensure that those who might be carriers aren't let in, right? So, having taken a look at our problem and the problems and the tech you might use, let me now introduce our judges. So we have Eugene Yao from Enterprise Singapore, right, the government board in charge of promoting business development. He's been a huge mentor and help to us as we've been organizing this. So, also thank you to him for coming, for agreeing to help out. We have Chirhan Lee from Reactor Industries. Reactors is Singapore's biggest youth entrepreneurship group. Right, they're awesome, amazing. They've helped us in the past with previous hackathons. They really go out of their way, and they'll actually be sponsoring some of our prizes, which you'll hear a little bit more about tomorrow. Then we have Mei Hui Foon. Now, this is actually a little funny because Mei Hui works at the Economic Development Board, but she'll be representing the female tech advocacy group Tech for She. And then finally, we have Julin Sim from the Singapore Economic Development Board, called Dialing In from Paris. So, having introduced the judges, let's just take a look at what the schedule for the next, today and tomorrow is going to look like. At 10 a.m. today, there will be an introduction to ideation session. I strongly recommend that everyone who can attend this does so, right? Because we'll talk a lot about how to vet ideas, how to brainstorm, right? A little bit about like what like hackathoning 101 is, if that makes sense, right? Like because we do not expect a fully finished product, right? Like what you're trying to build for hackathon would look radically different for example, what you're building for a school, a piece of coursework for your school, or a business. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then at 10 from 10:40 and 11:45, we will have some technical workshops in React, Python, and iOS. The specifics as to when each workshop will be is going to be sent on Slack after this live stream. And then after that, have lunch, relax, you talk to your team, get a sense as to what you want to build. Then from 2 to 5 p.m., we will have a mentor check-in session. So I will send out the links to you guys so that you can sign up for sort of 5-minute one-on-one chats with the people from the organizing team, and just so that you can get a sense of some feedback for your ideas and everything. Then Sunday, the big day. So at 9 a.m., we have a mandatory introduction to pitching workshop. So this is one of those things. There's no way for us to force you to go, but if you don't go, you have a very unclear idea as to what you actually need to do for your submission. So yeah, you should definitely go. Um, and then you have until 2 p.m. to work on your projects. By 2 p.m., you must submit your project to this platform called DevPost. We'll speak about the specifics tomorrow when we do the introduction to pitching, but this is just a heads up. By 2 p.m., it must be done and submitted. Right, between 2 to 4, the judges will be deliberating. So, okay, this part of the timeline will depend on how long the judges take to deliberate. It may finish slightly earlier, right? So the judges will deliberate on the projects that have been submitted. right at around 4 or whenever they're done with the first pass, we will live stream the finalists' pitches, right? As they do as all the judges go on a Zoom call, do their final deliberations, and then we'll announce the winning teams as well as the prizes. So again, you'll hear a lot more about what the actual pitching and submission will look like, but it's the core of it is just to let it. The core of it will be a 3-minute pitch video, 3-minute maximum, that the judges will view. Yeah, again, this is just to sort of let it sit in your mind that that's how you're going to be presenting it. More details will be shared tomorrow. Right. With respect to the actual judging criteria that they'll be used, there are four broad categories. Right now, I don't want you to pay attention to the specific point allocation because ultimately the judges make a qualitative assessment on which projects they feel really stood out to them. But this is just an area for you that you might want to focus on. So we have the hacker aspect, right? This has to do with the actual development, right? What technologies did you use, right? Like, did you use them well? Did the solution you built actually work? Now, for example, if you talk about how you use Java to create an iOS app, you're not going to score very well on this hacker aspect. And, frankly, you're probably not going to score well on the others either. Then you have the designer aspect, right? So aesthetics is very important, right? Like that, it primes people's expectations about your project, right? So what are the aesthetics of your project like, right? Does your UI look professional or playful, or is it sloppily designed? Right? What's the user experience like? Do you need to constantly handhold them? Is it intuitive? Then you have the COVID aspect, which is, I think, special to our hackathon, right? And really, all of these center around the same question, which is, does this project actually solve a problem faced by people in a world with COVID-19? Right? Does it solve problems that people actually have nowadays? Right? And like, was your pitch good? Is that something that is your project something that the government might be able to support? Right? That relates to our prizes, which again you'll hear a little bit more about tomorrow. Then finally, the idea aspect. This is a hackathon. You only have the weekend to build it. We do not expect you to have a finished, clean, Google grade product. What we do expect, though, is that the idea behind it is solid, right? Like a bad product can always be fixed with like slightly more time, but no amount of time can heal a bad idea. Right? So, is that idea itself exciting? Is it ambitious? Could it make a difference? Now, if you have not already done so, it's very, very important that you and your team register at this link. The Google Slides have been sent to the Slack channel. So please just go and you can find them there. It's really important because when you bought your Eventbrite tickets, it didn't tell us everybody that's in your team. And so we will be unable to contact you in the event we need to, and obviously that's really bad. So please, please, please sign up there. You'll also find in this the link to the Slack channel. So you'll find the invite link. So please go ahead and join that as well. Just some general advice. So we've been running hackathons for a few years now, and these are just some, I guess, pointers that you might want to keep in mind as you go through the weekend. The first is to just pace yourself. There's always this pressure when you're in a hackathon to drink loads of Red Bull and to just work like for 24 hours straight, no breaks. Maybe like have like 5 minutes, like cram a slice of pizza in your mouth, right? But make sure you take care of yourself and don't burn out, right? Like burnout is really visible, especially like when the judges are viewing the actual pitches, right? It's really clear what teams spent time taking care of themselves and spent time actually perfecting the pitch, making it look professional. Right? Make sure you keep the judging criteria in mind, right? This, frankly tells you everything you need to know as for what the judges are going to be looking for, right? So please just it's all there. Keep that in mind when you're building your product. If you come and you say you want to be the next Snapchat or Facebook, like that'll be great, but this is a COVID related hackathon, for example. Maintain perspective. This links to something that I mentioned earlier. We don't expect you to have a finished product, right? We don't expect you to build an Amazon or a whole company in a weekend, right? But what we expect is just a really awesome, high quality hackathon build. And finally, make sure that you and your team communicate with each other and treat each other with some respect, right? You could be working with your team. I mean, no, not could. You will be working with your team for the whole weekend. You guys will sort of sink or swim together. So treat them well, right? I mean, you guys are all should be all be with your friends anyway, so that's not really a problem. I mean, do keep in mind though that the team you are competing in could be your team for many years to come. I met my team at a hackathon, like 4 years ago, and we still build things together to this day. So, thank you all, and let the hacking begin. Please, again, tune in at 10 a.m. for the ideation sessions, and then after that for the workshops. Keep an eye, please, I beg you, keep an eye on Slack. It is our only way to communicate with you, right? I mean, virtual hackathons are awesome and everything, but this is one downside that if you don't check Slack, we cannot help you. So this slide deck can be found. I'll put it on Eventbrite. It can also be found in that email I sent you. The email I sent you before the live stream began. If you have any questions, just message one of us. We might not all be online at the same time, so just if you could post it in like a channel instead, that would be more appropriate. Keep in mind that we'll be here on call to help you guys until around 10 p.m. because we need to sleep as well. All right. Thank you guys so much. Let the hacking begin.